There's a weird disconnect in 2026. We can shoot insanely high quality video. We can edit faster than ever. We can collaborate across the world. But the moment it's time to send large video files, everything slows down. And suddenly what should be the simplest step of the process becomes the hardest one. So let's fix that. In this video, I'll show you a workflow that actually works when you're dealing with large video files. Here are the 5 ways people send large video files today, what each one does well, and where they start to break down. Starting with method number 1, traditional cloud storage links. Cloud storage is often the go-to solution. You upload your files to a shared cloud and grant access by sending a link. This can work well when files don't change often, quality isn't extremely high or important, and there are only a few collaborators. But as file sizes increase, this method introduces some potential operational issues. As uploads and downloads depend on individual internet speeds, every revision requires a new upload, and each collaborator typically downloads their own copy, creating issues when teams try to use it in tandem with their current workflow. For static storage, it works, but we need something that shapes how work moves. Method 2, file transfer services. File transfer tools are often the next step. They're focused on moving large files efficiently from one place to another and can be great for one-time deliveries, sending originals without compression, and very large single file transfers. However, they're still centered around the send and receive model. Each iteration requires another transfer, and each recipient ends up with a standalone copy. This makes them effective for delivery, but less so for ongoing access. Method 3, compression and downscaling. When you start running into these bottlenecks, sometimes the next thought is, well, it must be my files, which leads teams to try compressing files, lowering the resolution, reducing the bitrate, or switching codecs. Now, this approach can solve a lot of your problems with sending video files back and forth, as long as video fidelity isn't critical. But compression always comes with trade-offs. Lower bitrate reduces details, downscaling affects clarity, and some codecs require extra processing before the file is even ready to send. In other words, compression can solve the transport problem, but it can also introduce extra steps and compromises later down the line. Method 4, physical media. Sharing a hard drive or SSD is still an option, and in certain cases it can solve bandwidth constraints entirely. But when there's distance between you and your team, all you're really doing is replacing upload time for shipping time, and it's often more expensive and way more risky than cloud storage or file transfers. Method 5, file streaming. Let's take a second and shift the thought process behind your team's files. Instead of treating large files as something you need to send, treat them as something you grant access to. That's the model that LucidLink was built on. In LucidLink, your files live in a cloud-based file space that behaves like a local drive. You don't upload and download files back and forth, you mount the file space in LucidLink and work directly from it. When someone else needs access, you don't send the file, you give them access to it, and they can open it immediately regardless of the size and whether it's being worked on or not. Nothing needs to finish transferring before work can start. No duplicate files, no cleanup, and no worries about where your files ended up. Over time, you'll notice streaming your files has saved you hours that would have not only been spent waiting on your files to upload or download, but LucidLink also eliminates communication breakdowns. Since everyone sees the same live files at the same time, you no longer have to worry about whether you're working from the right version. With LucidLink, large files open immediately, playback starts right away, and updates are visible to your entire team without having to resend anything. It allows you to stop worrying about transferring your files altogether and just focus on collaboration. And this becomes especially useful when you leverage LucidLink guest access. If you need to send files to someone outside of your team, you can give them access through a secure guest link. They don't have to install anything, and you don't have to worry about losing control over your files. And when they're done, you just close off access. So what's the best way to send large video files in 2026? Well, it depends on what you're sending and how often it changes. If you're just sending final files, almost anything will work. But if you're working with large video files that change, get reviewed, or need to stay accessible, transfers will always slow you down, but streaming access won't. That's why in 2026, most teams are moving away from sending files entirely and toward file streaming like LucidLink that lets them work in real time. So switch to LucidLink today and subscribe for more videos where we'll show you how you can make your workflow actually flow.